Hey, thanks for joining the webinar today. So, I'm David Walston, CEO and the CPA here at Walston Advisory Firm, and we're going to just talk about tax season 2026, hopefully how to make it a little bit easier, kind of what's going on. Go over that here in these slides. So, again, welcome. We are recording this webinar, so the live recording will be up here afterwards, right on our YouTube channel, so you can check it out later. Feel free to submit questions in the chat if you have any as we go along, but we will have a Q&A session at the end. If I feel like it, I'll answer them as I go, but we'll see what happens. And then we're going to share the slides, of course, to all the participants who signed up. Yep. So what we're going to cover, we're going to talk about kind of tax season, how that works from our perspective, how and why tax refunds get delayed, how to prepare ahead of time, and how to review your tax return. So you'll have to stay with me there because that can get a little bit boring, but I think it's important to know, for everyone to know kind of where things fall out on their tax return so they can ask questions if things don't look right. And we're going to do a quick review of the new OBB, One Big Beautiful Bill, things and where they show up on the tax returns as well. And then we're going to do a tax home overview. That is the client portal we use. So we'll walk through how that works and then take questions at the end. All right. Oh, and the one thing I wanted to mention, we will be reviewing a fake tax return today. The info on the tax return is not meant in any way to represent any current or former clients. It is only provided as an example to help you understand where items might show up on your tax return. If you have some specific questions about your tax return, please let us know privately and we can discuss or set a time to discuss with you. Please don't put any questions about your specific tax situation into the chat. That would be a bad idea. So if you have specific questions about your specific tax situation, feel free to let us know. If you have a general question, feel free to throw that in there, but nothing too specific. Want to make sure we keep your information private. So last webinar I did, I can talk fast sometimes, so we're going to try to take it a little bit slower today, and we'll see how it goes. Let me know if you have any questions or can't hear things or audio is not working right in the chat or whatever, and we'll get going. There we go. Next slide. All right, so tax season timeline. Everyone kind of knows when the tax deadlines are. Like April 15th and such, but most people don't know everything in between. So from January into March, there's a couple different deadlines that throw in there. There's the January 31st deadline, which is for all payroll tax forms to be submitted, and that is including W-2s and such like that. And so a lot of people will get their W-2s. If they're digital, you can generally download them immediately when they're ready. But if you're getting them in the mail, first couple of weeks of February. So if you're just a W-2 employee, then you might actually have all your tax documents together first couple of weeks in February. If you have brokerage accounts or investments or anything else going on, it can be late February, early March until you get your information, or late March, depending on what's going on. So the January to March deadline is when companies are creating the documents that you need to provide us. And so we're kind of in a waiting form there. And then if you are a small business owner or you have ownership in a business where you receive a K-1, those tax returns are due on March 15th. And so you're probably not going to get those until end of March, and maybe not even then because they might file an extension. So what we do is, into this timeline, we've got organizers and everything set up in our client portal, and our goal with those is to provide you the information that you provided us last year so that you have a list of what you should be looking for in the mail or online or where you need to go find things. So during March and April, we do tax returns in February, just not as much. As we roll into March, more people have their information together and start submitting it to us. But we are also balancing in March to April, working on business tax returns and personal tax returns. So our goal is to process based on priority and timeliness. So the faster you get us information, the faster we try to get your tax returns done. But there are a couple tax returns that have priority based on they really need to get out for extenuating circumstances. But the majority of the time is we try to keep it based on when we receive the total information from you. Our goal is to have a turnaround time of around 2 weeks. That can be extended. And what I mean by extended is if we ask you a bunch of questions, it should take a while to get back to us. Then, of course, we don't restart the clock, but it can extend that 2-week deadline because we're waiting on you for information. So there's a lot of things that can affect that. And it mostly is once we get your information communicating with you. But with brokerage accounts and other things like that, they can wait until late February to get their information. The other thing I'll mention as well is there's a lot of times where I've seen in the past where brokerage firms will issue their 1099 summaries and then they'll correct them a couple weeks later. And so sometimes being the first isn't always the best because, especially if you have a lot of things going on, it might be worth waiting a couple extra weeks just to make sure there's no corrections or anything coming in. Most of the time you're good, but sometimes you're not. And then we have to make adjustments as we see fit. As we get closer to the deadlines, so that would be March 16th for business pass-through entities. And so that is a S corporation or partnership. Those returns are due on March 16th this year instead of the 15th because the 15th falls on a Sunday. So as we get to the week before those deadlines, what we do is we start shifting our concentration from preparing tax returns, and we still do some prep, but to making sure that we know exactly who are our clients that we need to file extensions for. So if you haven't signed the e-file authorization forms and we've put your return together, then we're just going to file an extension because we're not going to try to figure it all out up until the deadline. We're just going to file an extension so we have the extra time. And then if you've gotten your documents to us and we haven't had a chance to prepare your return, make sure we file an extension for you. So that week before the deadline is when we work on making sure we have a good list of who we need to file an extension for and get those taken care of. So it is, as a tax client, it is important for you to notify us as soon as possible that you are a returning client so that you are on our list to know that we need to file an extension for. If you wait until the last moment, we will definitely do our best to file an extension, but unless you've let us know that you are going to be a recurring client, we're not going to file an extension for you. And that goes with most tax preparers. They have to know you're going to be a client to do anything for you. So make sure you do that ahead of time and early. All right, so what does the smooth tax season look like? In an ideal world, you get all your tax return documents, you submit them to us, and we get it all taken care of, and we move on. We realize you're not perfect, we're not perfect, and the firms sending you information aren't always timely either. So submit all your documents the best as you can. So get them all, use the organizer and checklist we put together because that'll give you a good idea of what you should be providing us, and then get them to us. Once you get them submitted, filled out the organizer, we tried to fix the organizer this year so that there's not as many questions. I think the last years we've had like 20 to 30 questions. I think you can still get up to that amount, but you only get 10 questions or so, maybe less up front. And then as you answer those questions, we might have more questions in the organizer for you. So if you do your best to fill that out, that really does help because it make sure we have the information we need to ask you additional questions if we need to, and gives you that checklist of documents to provide us. And again, at the end of the presentation, we're going to go over TaxDome to make sure you kind of know what's going on there. Hold on. Yep. All right. So we're going to do an overview of the tax portal, make sure you guys have an idea there. Any other thing here? Communication here. So though I love talking to you, my clients all the time, phone calls, meeting in person, email is often, or text messages often the best way to communicate information to us that we need. And the reason for that is if I get on a phone call with you and we've had a good conversation and I've done my best to take notes, and then I get off, and before I can do anything with the information you told me, I get another phone call. There can be times where I have to ask you again because I forgot because I got interrupted immediately after getting off the phone with you. So email and text are the easiest ways because we have a written record of what you've given us. It's a much easier to put that into our workflow and make sure we've got it taken care of. Though I love, like I said, talking to you guys on the phone, love to have a meeting with you. email is one of the best ways to get us the information. So if you get an email from us, please respond timely. We do have statuses in TaxDome, and I'll try to show that when we get to that point. But we have several statuses, so you should be able to see where your tax return is sort of in process. And one of those statuses, I believe, is we're waiting on you for information. So if you're wondering what's going on and you log into your portal and you see waiting on you, double check your email, make sure there's not a message from us that you haven't replied to, and get back to us if you can. And then lastly, review and sign. This is probably one of the most important parts. Most people get the signing right, but that's why we're going to do a quick review of a tax return today, because I want to be able to give you the ability to look through your tax return, kind of know where everything's at, and then if you have questions, feel free to ask. We don't want you to just sign off without looking at it. We want you to kind of know what's going on there. And then in addition, if you don't sign your e-file authorization forms, which we do remind you to do, we can't file your tax return. We're not allowed to. So unless you sign those, we can't do anything about it. All right. The next one is about refunds. So what can cause your refund to get delayed? These are the three main things here: changes in tax law or IRS forms, missing information, and then delayed review and signing. So what do I mean by that? Well, there's several years, and this will probably happen again this year, maybe not. But there's been several years where Congress passes a new law that is retroactive to the prior year, and that requires the IRS to implement new changes. Now, it doesn't look like that's going to happen during tax season this year, but they did pass the One Big Beautiful bill last year, and that caused a bunch of new changes and deductions. And though it looks like the IRS has been better at implementing those changes, I wouldn't be surprised if it does actually slow down the refund process if you're getting a bunch of those new tax deductions. So that could definitely slow down your refunds. Hopefully it doesn't, but it definitely could. But normally if you're a W-2 filer, there's not a lot of things that will slow down your refund unless you are claiming the earned income tax credit, which means if your income is below a certain threshold, you get an extra refund. If you were getting that, those tax refunds take extra time regardless. And so you're going to take longer that way. But if you're just a normal W-2 file and you don't qualify for that, your refund, if you are due it, should be coming within a couple weeks of filing the return. This is something I will note this year. The IRS is explicitly asking for direct deposit information, meaning that how they're asking is you have to literally tell them that you want a specific check instead of assuming that you want to check unless you put the direct deposit information in. So we're going to continue to ask for that information because the IRS is trying to move away from sending out checks or collecting checks for payments. That started September last year. So they're continuing to push that through tax filing season as well. All right, missing information. So one of the things that we have happened several times for our clients is we do get rejections from the IRS. So we put your return together with the information you provided, we send it to the IRS, and then we get a rejection. The rejection can be for several different reasons. The main one we see where we're missing information from you is related to the healthcare marketplace. So if you have insurance through the healthcare marketplace and have not provided us your 1095A, the IRS will automatically reject that return and say, hey, you need to get this information to us. They don't reject it for all things that might be missing, but that is when they will reject a return form. So we have to go ask you for it. If you get it to us quickly, we can resubmit and everything should be fine, but that will delay the submission of the tax return, which also delays the refund. In addition, if you've given us information, we prepare your return based on the information we provided, and then we submit it, they accept it, but then the IRS has other information that they say that you should have reported on your tax return, but we didn't have. They may adjust your return, which will delay your refund. So that's why we try to give you that checklist in your tax organizer that kind of lists what you gave us last year, because that should essentially give you an idea of what we need to make sure we skip all those delays and get everything accurately to the IRS. And then lastly is the signing your e-file authorization. 80% of our clients are really good at this. They just do it and move on. But we do have some that I don't know, either they get busy or something like that, or just don't notice it in their inbox. But if you do not sign the e-file authorization form, we cannot submit your tax return. And if we don't submit your tax return, you're not going to get your refund. So make sure you sign your e-file authorizations forms once you've reviewed your tax return. And if you have questions, please let us know so that we can answer them for you and then get you to sign the forms. Like I said, if you don't sign them, we can't submit the tax returns. All right. So what do you need to prepare? Our tax organizers are probably the best. This is just a quick general overview of the information we're going to ask you for. If you're a business owner, we're going to want your profit and loss / P&L. Those are the same things, just two different terms for them. Expense reports, maybe specific things, bank statements. We ask them for those businesses because we need to have your ending balances. Payroll, some of these different things like that. So, like I said, we're going to try to ask for this information through our tax organizers. We do have one for business and personal. And so and even with all this information, we still might have additional questions depending on the situation. This year, I'm trying to make sure that if I see that you might have overtime or work in an industry that might have tips, I try to make sure I ask those questions, even if you haven't provided that information, because I want to make sure you get those extra deductions. All right, so reviewing your return. So I need to pull up something here. So you might have to look at my face here in a second. But this is generally what you need to look at. Look at the top portion. So to us, your name, socials, and addresses are kind of new information. Like we see it every year, once a year. But to you, it is, you know exactly what it should be. So it's real easy to see if there is a typo. So please make sure we review that. Double check your dependent information, refunds, all that stuff. And then look at the income information and make sure that looks kosher to you. So let me switch over here to back to me. And then I need to pop out of here and pull up a tax return for you. And I have a text one prepared. I just have to find where I put it. I have a lot of tabs open. There it is. Cool. Again, this is a fake tax return. All right. So this is for Ponderosa Pine, which is not a real person. So we're going to do a quick overview of this to kind of show you where things show up. It can be a little boring because I am just going over numbers. I understand that, but please try to stay with me as we go through so you kind of get a general idea of what to look at when you're looking at a tax return so you can see, what are some things I need to make sure I look at. So for our returns that we prepare, you get this one. This tells you if you're receiving a refund or you have a payment balance due and a check and in our tax portal, we'll go through there. We'll try to show you how that works as well. And then we come down to the 1040. So this is a senior return because I tried to include as much as I could with the one big beautiful bill credits. But all the returns look pretty similar. So you got the name at the top here. This is the information that I need you all to make sure you double check because guess what? As long as we have the information from last year, it should roll over fine. But if we have to change your address or maybe you had a maiden name and you changed your last name, there is a chance that we make a typo. And so double checking to make sure there's typos and that we have updated your address. If you have a new address, it's always important. We try to do that, but sometimes we forget and sometimes we make typos because we're humans. So, and then they did change the dependent section a little bit. It used to be just, first name, last name, social, across, and now it's a little bit different. So review this section to make sure we have your children on there correctly. They're all listed. Down here, you'll see if they're getting the child tax credit or the other dependent credit. And what that means is the child tax credit is if they're 17 or under, they qualify for that. And the other tax credit is for any other dependents. That is a $500 credit. And so that'll tell you what they qualify for there. And then you'll actually see the credit down later on. When we come to income, so on the senior form, it's split up a little bit more. There's 3 pages versus 2 pages on the other forms. So at the top here, you've got your W-2 income. The way I put the tips income in here is It's not reported in that W-2, but most of the time it's going to be. And then you've got other wage information here. Most of the time, it's really just this top form that's going to be filled out, and the rest of this information is not going to be. Most people don't have that. As we come down to the second page on the senior form, you've got your interest, ordinary dividends, and then you got IRAs and pensions. Those are slightly different, but they both come through on a 1099-R. So those fields will be filled out if you have those, and then you have Social Security benefits, which are here. So on this, if you are having Social Security benefits, your total benefit amount is going to be 6A, and then your taxable amount is going to be 6B. And then we will provide a form showing you how we calculated the taxable portion. All right. So we come down here to your total income and adjusted gross income. There are adjustments. This return doesn't have any adjustments. So if you see a line there, you want to look at Schedule 1 or ask us and we'll explain what they are for. That leads to your adjusted gross. And then we come down to the area that most people are more familiar with. That is your standard or itemized deduction. This person is getting the standard deduction. And then you've got additional deductions. So this is a section we're going to jump into a little bit more. Schedule A1 is the new schedule for the One Big Beautiful Bill deductions. And so this line item shows you a subtotal of all the deductions that you qualified for on the return. So you got your standard deduction up here or itemized. So if you have itemized, you'll see Schedule A. This person doesn't, so that's not going to be on there. Those deductions have increased for 2025. So most people are going to still get the standard deduction unless you have a unique circumstance. So let's hop down to Schedule 1A because I want to show that to you guys. So this is Schedule 1A, additional deductions. And so you're going to see your adjusted gross income, which is this number, several times on this form because there are income limitations to all the deductions. So we're going to start out with tips. If you look here, if you're a W-2 employee, your tips are going to show up in either of these two forms, so A or B. If you are a 1099 contractor, so you receive Form 1099 NEC, your tips are going to show up in box 5. Technically, there could be a situation where you have a W-2 with tips and you also have a 1099 with tips, and so these boxes could be filled in, but most people are going to have one or the other. And so this person, we said they had $30,000 in tips. The max you can take is $25,000. That's the amounts represented here. This is your income, and this is the limitations. So for single, had a household, or married filing separately, you're limited to $150,000 in income before your deduction gets phased out, and $300,000 for married. And so you can see here, 8, 9, and then 10. 10 is the difference between your income, and the threshold. And so it's a negative, meaning there is no phase out. So you get the full amount. And that full amount is $25,000, not 30. So I put 30 on there on purpose to show you that you can't get more than the $25,000. If we come down here to overtime, so this one is a little bit unique. So what we're asking for our clients this year is that you provide a year-end pay stub that shows the year-to-date overtime you worked. Be aware that you do not get a deduction for the full amount listed on that number. You get a deduction for the 0.5, because most overtime, qualified overtime is paid at 1.5 hours. You get a deduction for 0.5 hours. So 1/3 of your total overtime pay is what is going to be qualified overtime pay for this deduction. So when you're looking and reviewing this and you're looking at your pay stub and you're like, that doesn't match, that's why. It's 1/3 of the amount. All right, so we did the same thing here. We said they had $30,000 of overtime. Your cap here is $12,500 per individual. So if you're married filing, or I guess it's not, yeah, per individual. If you're married filing joint, you can get $25,000. So you're limited to $12,500 if you're individual, single, head of household, or married filing jointly, or separately, not jointly. So same income limitations apply here as to tips. And so this individual who is fake gets qualified overtime of $12,500, even though they had $30,000 worth of overtime. And then the last deduction we're going to go over, I'll mention this one briefly. No tax on car loan interest. Most people will not qualify for this because you have to buy a new car. You have to be the first owner of a new car in 2025 that was built mostly in America. So we need a lot more information on you, from you to qualify for this, and then it shows up here though. So if you think you qualify, let us know. We'll figure it out with you, but I didn't put it on here because most people aren't going to qualify for that. And then this last section is the enhanced deduction for seniors. So if you're over the age of 65, you automatically qualify for this, unless you're outside the income limitations. So you can get up to $6,000 per individual. So single, you're only going to get up to 6. If you're married, you can get up to 12. Income limitations on this are different than those for overtime and tips. So if you're single, head of household, or married filing separately, it is $75,000. That is the cap on income. Anything over that phases out the income. And then married filing jointly is $150,000. So you can see here, they're over the income threshold. And so they only get $1,700 of the $6,000 versus getting the full $6,000. So that number, the $1,770 plus the $1,250 plus the $25,000, all add up to the $39,270, which is on the first page or the second page of the 1040 here. Here we go. So that is where that number comes from. So if you see this on your tax return, know that the details are on Schedule A1. And if you have questions, just reach out. So those two deductions get added together. That gives you the 64, and then it gets subtracted from your adjusted gross to give you your taxable income. So this total tax is just related to the taxable income, doesn't represent any additional taxes. So the child tax credit is now $2,200 per child, so an extra $200 versus last year, which was flat $2,000. This person is getting an additional credit here, so they're getting a total of $2,800 in credit. We can skip down to Schedule 3 to look at those additional credits. We'll get there in a second. And then if you have other taxes like self-employment tax, those are going to show up here to get you your total tax. So it's going to take the credits and subtract them for your tax, and then add any additional tax to get your total tax. So these schedules, there's 3 different schedules. There's Schedule 1, 2, and 3. This return only has 2 and 3, and then 1A. And these will show you any additional taxes on here. So they're saying because we had unreported social tips, they're going to give you an additional tax for Social Security and Medicare wages on those unreported tips. And then down here, they're getting a credit for dependent care. So if you have any additional credits that you're looking for, whether retirement savings or educational or residential energy or anything like that, those are all going to show up on Schedule 3 and then be subtotaled to come back up onto your tax return on line 20 here. So this person has a tax due of $10,408. They had withholding from their W-2, so this is going to show W-2 withholding, 1099 withholding, so 1099Rs or anything like that. And then your estimated tax payments are going to show down here on 26. And so the difference is either a refund, this person shows that they're going to get a refund, or tax due. So that's a quick overview of a tax return. I could go into all kinds of specific weird use cases. I'm not going to do that today. If you have any specific questions about your specific use case, please let us know. We would love to kind of run through your specific tax return with you. I like to be able to help my clients understand where things are so they have a better idea of how to look at their tax return. So let's get back to the presentation here. All right. So next up, I guess final takeaways. Prepare early if you can. If you can submit your documents completely, like I said, none of us are perfect. So if you don't get us all your documents, we're just going to ask. But the more documents are, the more complete you can get us your documents, the better and more smooth things go. And then please make sure you review and sign off. But make sure you review first. TaxHome. So TaxHome's our new client portal. It's for secure document uploads, communications. We have a text messaging thing in there that you can do. E-sign, invoice payments. So it should be everything all in one there for you. So let's do a walkthrough of that. We'll see how this goes. Switch back to me while I get that web page opened up here. This one. Hopefully it didn't sign me out, and it didn't. That's good news. So, all right. So if you go to our website, and I'm going to move, you can see it there. You have a client portal up here. So if you click there, it'll take you to TaxDome and have you sign in. If you're having trouble signing in, shoot us an email, text us, whatever. We'll help you get into your client portal. Once you're in there, it should look something like this. We'll zoom in here a little bit. So one of the things is my account is attached to a bunch of other accounts. And so if you have tasks to be done in those other accounts, even if I'm in this fake client, Ponderosa Pines account, you're going to have your to-dos here for other accounts down below. So that's good to know. And then if you need to switch between accounts, you can click up here and change accounts. So let's walk through an organizer real quick. Great. Look at that. So yes, there is an app. If you use the app, it's awesome. You can take pictures and stuff like that. So here's our questions. Did you move? No, it's not going to do anything because we should have your address already. Did you change your marital status? No. If you hit yes to these questions, they're going to ask you more questions on the following pages. I'm not going to hit yes to them. We're going to just say nothing changed. Yes, we have dependents. We'll just say yes to that one. So you're going to type in your name, and I'm going to just type in test. And then date of birth is, I was born today. And it's so 0000000. This is optional because it's not required. We do ask for driver's license. There are several states that require us to have that information. State of Utah wants us to have the information. It is not required, but we ask you provide it because they ask for it. And then the type of incomes, W-2, NEC, and other. And then it's going to ask you to upload those. Address is address. So we'll type in city, state. Marital status. This matters for if it changed. If it did change, because we're going to just make sure you know what you qualify for there, and then this information, please provide this to us. Makes our life easier for e-files and payments. It's going to ask for your spouse's information if you're filed. Most of this information should already be filled in if you've worked with us before. And then it's going to ask you the same information here. Bunch of questions here. I'm going to ignore them, but they are helpful. It's going to ask for dependent information if we didn't already have it. And I will put that in there for you. Son, how many lives? Time. This matters, sort of. If your kid is in college, they don't actually have to live with you for you to still claim them. If they're a newborn, they don't have to live with you 12 months. But most of the time, it's going to be 12 months. Date of birth, please let us know. These questions are questions that the IRS wants us to ask to qualify if they are, you can claim them for tax credit. So you have to provide for more than half of their financial support. Included in the calculation is housing. So if they live with you, then that probably gets them pretty close for you to providing for more than half their financial support. And then can anyone else claim them? Most of the time that's going to be no, and this is going to be yes. But let us know if someone else can, because there might be things that we need to do here. Here's some sources of income other than the normal ones. So if you have those, check off the docs, and we'll ask you for additional documents. Did you own any foreign assets? So I added this section here. If you own investments in stock or other things in foreign assets, but they're held in a brokerage account, like Charles Schwab or Ameritrade, this is a no. You don't directly own any foreign assets. But if you literally have a bank account with your name on it and you have cash in it, then you have foreign assets, or you directly hold interest in a foreign company, then answer yes. But most people, this is going to be no. Some of these things will help with deductions. So if you have any of these, check them off. And we will ask you to upload documents for these. Did you make any estimated tax payments? Please, if you did, yes. and then please throw in information on these. It helps us a lot, because that's one of the things we've had with clients changing, because we don't always get clear communication on if you paid or how much you paid. And so we're going to assume, unless you tell us otherwise, that you didn't make any estimated tax payments, which is probably the best. So that's the organizer. Hit submit. There are other organizers here. So for our, we have for tax planning. So part of the signing the engagement letter is to do this here. And so if you want tax planning quarterly or annually, check that, and then that will be included in your engagement letter price. And then payment information. So the options we give you is 30% upfront, monthly, or a full in advance. So whatever you pick it and hit submit. And then you should be all good there. We do have that's right, proposal. So most of you have done this already, but it'll have your proposal with your pricing. And then you hit next. My name, sign it. I accept. All right. So that gets that all taken care of. And then we should have in your more section. Once that's done, you'll need to figure out billing in here to pay an invoice. You'll need to add a payment method. You can just send us a check if that is what you want to do, but the easiest way to pay is with credit card or bank account. We did fix it so that you now have the ability to manually enter your bank account information at the bottom here. So do all that and then get it paid. If you need help with that, please reach out. This one is 0, so we're going to hit paid, and then it's done. Yay. And then this is going to stay out there. This should be signed. I signed this. It might be another one. There we go. Let's see if there's anything else I want to go over with you guys on here. Okay. More. There should be. Let me see if I can get this to work. Hold on just a second. I want to see if I can get you the status updates. So I'm going to throw this client into the tax portal. I mean, our tax pipeline. Let me find the right window here. Okay. It is on here. Okay, so there it is. Yep. So now you can see on here. Oh yeah, it's on me. Give me a second. So you can see here that you now have this taxes individual tax return in progress. So this tells you your general statuses. In progress means we're looking at it. Let me come over here and play with the status for you. So, like I said, we can change the status to, where is it? There's a bunch of different statuses we have. The one I wanted to do, and we might add a new one. But so I just changed the status. We'll update the web page here. And now it says missing documents. So that will let you know if we're actually missing documents. So if we change it to that status once we've reached out to you about missing information. So if you see that, please contact us and hopefully we can get that resolved quickly. All right, let's see here. Let me get back to the presentation and we will take questions. Gotta find it first. I have too many tabs open. And if you're wondering why I'm looking back and forth, I've got 2 screens. So, all right, it's full screen mode. All right, let's minimize that, and we're back. All right, are there any questions? Hopefully, that was a quick overview and everything made sense. And there are no questions, but if you do have questions, please let us know. So one question we'll get is if we'll do a review of business tax returns at any point, and we probably will. Um, Business tax returns are normally more complicated. They're always more complicated, but normally more complicated than personal tax returns. And so we'll have to get together and figure out how we want to do that. We might just throw together another video and put it up there. The biggest thing with business tax returns is there's a lot more what do I want to say? Credits and deductions and things available versus individuals. So, question is, if a tax return gets extended, are there penalties? Are my taxes still due before the return is filed? So, this is something that has always annoyed me. If you think you have a tax amount due, that is due April 15th, regardless if we file an extension. So we tried to, that's why we pushed tax planning. So our goal is to meet with you at the end of the year to figure out where everything's looking for the year, kind of do some estimates, and that will give you an idea if we think you'll owe when we file your taxes the next year. And we generally give you, try to give you an estimated tax vouchers for making those payments because we want you to pay them ahead of time. That way you don't have to worry about it. So if we didn't meet with you about that, then let us know. And now, if you try to tell us, a couple days before deadline and you haven't given us documents and you think you're going to owe, it's going to be much harder for us to give you an estimate. But if you talk to us now, we can try to throw some numbers together to give you an idea of how much you're going to owe so that you can make a payment on time, and then we can file an extension. The extension just files the filing date, extends the due date of the filing, not the due date of the penalties or the tax return payment. So please make all payments by April 15th if you can. And extensions, to go after that, extensions don't increase your audit risk or anything like that. It allows time for review, waiting on information to come in, all that stuff. So like I said, the week up to the deadline, we're going to work on filing extensions because we want to make sure that no one's rushing through looking at the tax return. We want to make sure you have enough time to see what's going on so that you can get there. If you make a payment within a couple of days of the 15th, you're probably still fine. It's if you wait until the extension due date, which is September 15th for businesses and October 15th for personal. Any other questions? Oh, I was going to try to go through the app on my phone, but I don't know if we have time for that now. So let's see here. If you do use the mobile app, it's very good. So you should definitely download it for uploading documents and messaging and all that. Well, if that is all the questions we have, we can kind of finish it there. If you have, like I said, any specific questions about your individual tax situation, please reach out. If you're a client of ours and you have questions about the tax portal, Tax Dome, please reach out to us and ask, and we will try to solve those for you. So thank you for joining, and that's all we got for today. There is our contact information if you need to get a hold of us.